Vamos aproveitar esses segundos de pausa no podcast para falar sobre horas. Conheça o novo Samsung Galaxy Watch Ultra, projetado para resistir a qualquer desafio e superar limites com o poder do Galaxy AI. Quer garantir o seu? Ganhe a partir de R$800 de desconto no seu relógio usado. Acesse samsung.com.br e saiba mais. Galaxy Watch Ultra. Galaxy AI chegou.
Hi, everybody, and welcome to the Dr. Psych Mom Show. Today, we're going to talk about when you're scared of intimacy. And that includes all kinds of intimacy, not just sex, where I have to say intimacy on certain social media platforms because they won't get it passed if you just say sex. But all intimacy, closeness of all kinds. And before we get to that, I will tell you to subscribe. My most recent subscriber episode was on how physiological variables impact how you and your partner respond. And that includes sexual frustration. That goes along with physiological variables. All right, so let's just move on. Now, remember that a lot of extra discussion, if you like talking to me or like hearing me, comes when you join my Facebook group. If you're on Facebook, you could just click on the blue subscribe button and there's like a group of 450 people, including myself, that talk about issues like this all the time. So that could be a lot of fun for you. It's only $5 a month. All right, so what do I mean by intimacy? Intimacy is closeness. Intimacy is connection. Intimacy is when you really feel on the same page with somebody and you feel like you could be vulnerable with them and you could say whatever to them and that it won't, impact you and make you feel less than or scared. Now everybody's a little bit scared of intimacy, right? Because you don't want to, for example, overshare on the first date, or as you're getting to know somebody, you get scared about what they'll think about you if they really know you. You're scared to try new things in bed, possibly, because maybe they wouldn't like them, etc. I mean, it's totally normal as your relationship goes on to get more and more intimate, and you start out more scared than you end up. And that's the same thing with any relationship, right? As it deepens, there can be some fear about how you're going to be perceived or, and anything. Like everybody has fear of rejection on some level, and you don't want to look foolish or you don't want to care more than they do. But generally, in a healthy relationship, especially by the time you're married, a lot of this would abate. And you would feel comfortable being intimate with this person, and particularly if you had positive experiences with intimacy before that. Now, that is not just in romantic relationships. As I talk about all the time, the beginning of how people think about loving somebody is related to how you were raised. If you felt that you were raised to think that people will want to be close to you, if intimacy and closeness were normal in your family of origin, if you could say whatever to at least one of your caregivers and they wouldn't reject you and you didn't have to be scared of humiliation or scared that they would think you were stupid, then that can help you with feeling more comfortable and secure. That's what secure attachment is, literally. Like secure attachment is you learned at home that you were lovable, and then you go into your relationships assuming that you can love and be loved, and that is like a normal expectation for you. However, insecure attachment comes in two kinds, as I talk about all the time, and honestly, both of them are scared of intimacy. You thought I was just going to say avoidant, but it isn't. It's both. And there's also fearful avoidant. They're terrified of intimacy. I have a whole podcast on fearful avoidant attachment that you could listen to. But so avoidant attachment is the person who literally hates intimacy. They hate closeness. I have a podcast on avoidant husbands and a podcast on avoidant wives, and the attachment styles overview. So I got a lot of content on this, but the point is that they're not comfortable being close. They don't see the need to be close. They put relationships underneath everything else instead of as a important sort of thing. And they're always feeling smothered and overly, constrained within intimate relationships. And they usually couple with preoccupied attachment partners who ostensibly say that they want a lot of closeness and intimacy, except the reality is that they don't. They're scared of it too, and that's why they pick the avoidant people. Because they would not feel comfortable. Something would feel off. It wouldn't resonate with them and feel like home, like it does when it's like your upbringing, if they got a securely attached partner, because they're not securely attached. So the thing that makes the most sense for them is to be rejected. So it's interesting for any of you preoccupied attachment listeners to think about, are you really comfortable with intimacy the way that you think? Because as I've talked about so many times, there were red flags that your partner was avoidant right from the first date, probably. I have a post that says your whole relationship could be understood through the lens of your first meeting, and it's not wrong. You know, I mean, literally, a lot of people with preoccupied attachment tell me that within the first date, their partner rejected them in some way. You know, they like maybe made fun of them a little too much, or they said they were somebody who never wanted to get married, or, you know, they had other plans for multiple things that the person wanted to do, or they were just kind of not really present. They were hard to get, whatever it was. So like you knew almost right away, you know, or especially by the time you fell in love with them, that this person was hard to get, quote unquote. And instead of just the intellectual laziness of saying, I like a challenge, because you actually like hate that this person is this way and it's like the worst thing in your life, you know, you could say, maybe I'm scared of intimacy. Why wouldn't I be, right? Because how do you get preoccupied attachment is you do not have an upbringing where love is consistent. Your parent always loves you, but they cannot always give you attention. And I'm not talking about the way that, you know, like they can't give you attention every single second. I'm talking about that for large amounts of time, they just cannot respond contingently to your need for closeness because maybe they're drunk, maybe they're depressed, maybe they got a lot of other shit going on in their marriage or with the other kids. Maybe they were just parented in a way that makes them scared of intimacy. Either way, you're always trying to get that closeness from your caregiver and you never can. So then you replicate it. But you're scared of it too because you never got it. You don't think you deserve it. You never got it. The whole thing, it's a lot easier to keep pursuing and pursuing like Pepe Le Pew, you know, and running after the other skunk. Then once you get the other skunk, then what? You know, maybe you're not sure. Maybe you're not sure that that relationship could be sustainable. Interestingly, though, when preoccupied attachment people go into therapy, they grow more confident, they grow more self-aware, and they think, oh, you know what, I'm not so bad. You know, actually, like I really do feel like I should not have this avoidant partner. I feel kind of upset, you know, really for myself. I feel compassion for my younger self, banging my head into a wall with this avoidant partner. And maybe I want somebody who is more present. Like really, maybe this just isn't working out. Then that means that the person's moving more towards secure attachment. So the avoidant partner better get with the program and learn how to be closer, or else that person actually is growing more comfortable with the idea of intimacy, less scared of it, and in their next relationship, they may be with somebody more secure. But the point is that neither insecurely attached partner, neither the avoidant nor the preoccupied is comfortable with intimacy. And this is usually because, I mean, this is always from an attachment perspective, because they didn't really get that closeness as a kid. And it could have been a loving household, but just emotions were thought of as messy, embarrassing. It would never be the kind of house where you could come home and say that like somebody hurt your feelings and you would be confident in how that would be treated. Maybe you would be shamed. Maybe your parent would just get way too upset. You know, like they couldn't be a container for your feelings because they would get too anxious themselves, that something was very much awry, that you would be made fun of. Maybe they were somebody who would have come into the school and like, you know, caused drama for you, you know, and so you learned basically don't really share vulnerability. Or you saw a sibling do it and the parent humiliated the sibling or responded in a way that was in some way not good. Now, if you're thinking like, oh shit, what do I do with my kids? Am I a perfect parent? What do I do if my kid would say that? You know, like anybody listening to this podcast is probably fairly involved as a parent because they're somebody who thinks about feelings a lot. So, I mean, you can go down a rabbit hole and think about whether you're making your kids securely attached and, you know, make yourself crazy, or else you could just try to learn the best that you can from this podcast, therapy, other resources, you know, that you need to be kind of the emotional, you know, ballast and the rudder for your child and kind of maintain a calm and open and emotion and positive about emotions kind of framework at home, So don't let this, I know people sometimes listen to these and then they're like, oh my God, maybe it wasn't, maybe my parents were shit, but maybe I'm replicating the same garbage, unintentionally. And there's a lot of good books that you could read about that are beyond the purview and scope of this. There's a lot of my own stuff too. One good book that I always recommend is Parenting from the Inside Out. So you could always read that book and think about your own parenting within that context. So anyway, back to how you were parented. So if you learn that emotions are messy, if you learn that closeness with a parent is not something you can count on, then you ended up as some sort of insecure attachment, whether it's avoidant or preoccupied. And if things were really rough, then you learn to be fearful avoidant. So that's the I hate you, don't leave me type, where you are alternately angry at your partner and, obsessed with them. And you just vacillate in turn, based on the day, based on what happened, whatever. So either way, any of these types are not very confident about their ability or desire to be close. The preoccupied about their ability and the avoidant about their desire. So when you're scared of sexual intimacy, that seems pretty obvious because you refuse to have sex or you only have sex in a certain way. You don't look at each other. There's no foreplay. There's no I love you. There's no kissing. It's more, transactional. But with emotional intimacy, you can say the right things. You can say I love you. You could say, you look nice today. You can say those sort of things, but it's kind of scripted. You don't ever really go off the cuff. Passion isn't there. Like you don't express yourself spontaneously. It's very within a certain box. So you got to think about, are you the emotional equivalent of the woman or the man who refuses foreplay, refuses kissing, and sex is only about intercourse and, basic genital satisfaction versus a connection? And sometimes the men who are emotionally avoidant are partnered with the women who are sexually avoidant, and both of them are scared of intimacy, but they both say that the other one is the problem. So the man says that the woman won't be close really sexually, and she's within the box. She'll only do certain things, and, this is so upsetting. And then the man will not really act any different, but in the realm of emotions. Outside of the bedroom, he's very closed. And I have a whole podcast on if you want your wife to be more open-minded in the bedroom, be more open-minded outside of the bedroom. So somebody who will not have conversations they don't want to have, they won't try things they don't want to do, like outside the bedroom. And the only way that they want to be, quote, intimate is in bed. Now, there's no woman in the world no healthy woman that'll only be intimate in bed. She wants to be intimate in bed and out of bed. And there's no healthy partnership that is only based on people being vulnerable in the bedroom, but then outside of the bedroom, things feel very cold. That is not a healthy relationship. That's something that a lot of women get into when they're young, where they feel like the guy is being close and vulnerable during sex, but in reality, he's just experimenting a lot. And outside of the bedroom, he doesn't want to really look at them. Sometimes he's cheating. He'll only be, quote, close in one way, but then when they look at that closeness, he's really only saying I love you when he's having sex or drunk, in most cases both. And so it isn't really vulnerable, And so she's looking for him to be as vulnerable as in the bedroom, outside of the bedroom, but he's not even vulnerable in the bedroom. He just likes sex, and he's very avoidant. So, when you're scared of intimacy, like a lot of things go away. Like there's not a lot of eye contact. There's not a lot of non-sexual physical touch, not a lot of compliments. And again, you have learned growing up that this stuff is very dangerous, and you may get humiliated, you may get rejected. And so you try not to put yourself into a situation where you're going to get hurt in your adult intimate relationships, which is totally adaptive and makes sense, right? And I just talked about this in in my most recent subscriber episode. The one that the most recent one was about physiological variables that impact how you respond as a partner. And I talked about the people who are scared of, they learned at home that they should never be out of control of their hunger or their feelings physically. Like these are the kids that would get beaten and then they decide that they are never going to give anybody the satisfaction of hurting them. or the kid that learns to be okay not eating for a whole day because they don't get fed for a whole day. So if you learned at home, you should listen to that subscriber episode. If you learned at home that any sort of vulnerability wasn't good because nobody was going to meet your needs, then why in the world would you be vulnerable later on? That just doesn't even make any sense. So if this is something that you struggle with, then you think I'm going to say couples counseling, but you're wrong. Individual counseling can help. It can help you say, why do I get so scared and anxious and antsy and uncomfortable when my partner tries to be romantic or tries to be sexual? What happens why do I feel so exposed? Why do I feel like so awkward when somebody compliments me? I recently did a video about that. When women feel awkward about being complimented, that usually goes along with, they were never complimented. Or if they are uncomfortable with compliments about their body, they learn not to trust things like that. Like, for example, if you were sexually abused and the person talked a lot about how hot you were, you're not going to want to hear that, like, ever. And a lot of people don't even make that connection until they're in therapy. So, and it doesn't have to be as dramatic as sexual abuse. Like, if your dad, if you're a girl and your dad kind of thought you were an idiot, but he thought you were pretty. So he said, oh, look at you in that pretty dress. And then you tried to say something about school and he laughed because you weren't very smart from his perspective. Well, guess what? You're not going to like the compliments about being cute because they're going to be all wrapped up with stuff related to that he didn't think you were anything but cute. And of course, it's not just men who could do that. Like, it's women. It's the mother is impactful as well. And I can make up some sort of, example about a mother as well. But I'm not going to because his time is out. So just know that both parents can fuck you up, right? And if this is interesting to you and you think, wow, that's me, I'm super uncomfortable with intimacy, therapy can always help you with that. And do also read that book, Parenting from the Inside Out. That's a really good one. And as always, I feel like every so often I should recommend the book Running on Empty about childhood emotional neglect by Jonas Webb. It's a good book. A lot of my clients read it and get a lot out of it in terms of if you really do not feel comfortable being close with a partner, there's a problem with the closeness with a caregiver, and this book talks a lot about it. All right, I will talk to y'all later. Have a great day, guys. Bye-bye.